Welcome to Electrified. It's your host, Dylan Loomis. So, the $1 trillion question is, what will a Trump presidency mean for Tesla and Elon? For certain things, it's of course far too early to know with certainty, but I do want to lay out some things to prepare for and consider based on probabilities and the data we have. The first major item is the Inflation Reduction Act, as Trump has vowed to gut the IRA. Now, before I proceed, we do have to keep in mind some of Trump's comments were undoubtedly catering to his voting base and were made in an attempt to win the election. Elon may also have much greater influence on these policies, as Trump and Elon seem to have a very strong relationship at this point, one that has certainly grown significantly over just the past few weeks. A great example of that, during Trump's victory speech, he literally talked about Elon and SpaceX for a majority of it. He also said we have to protect our quote super geniuses. Trump knows the lengths that Elon went to help him get elected, and I think he'll feel a sense of gratitude for that for a long time. But back to policy, since Republicans now have control of the Senate and likely the House, Trump does have a path to making significant changes to the IRA. Just considering the consumer and commercial $7,500 tax credits, roughly anywhere between 15 and 30% of Tesla's gross profit in recent quarters has come directly from those IRA credits. But the specific number is not as important as knowing that if these IRA tax credits do go away, which may not happen until 2026, but if they do, Tesla's profitability would certainly suffer a material hit in the short term. That hit would be even more pronounced if the 45X manufacturing or production tax credits were also removed. But given the latter policy is in support of American manufacturing jobs, I'd like to think those are safe, and Trump has not specifically said anything about wanting to remove the production tax credits. Trump has been a proponent of continued onshoring and bolstering of domestic manufacturing. Now, Tesla would of course be fine if the tax credits were removed, but the legacy automakers that are trying to get their EV businesses off the ground would be put in incredibly precarious situations. Just a few notable cars that would lose the $7,500 credit: the Cadillac Lyriq, the Chevy Blazer, Equinox and Silverado, Ford's F-150 Lightning, the Honda Prologue, Rivian's R1S and R1T, and the VW ID4. And we don't know what Tesla would do to pricing of its vehicles if the tax credits are removed. There's a chance Tesla keeps pricing as is and takes the full margin hit. There's a chance Tesla raises prices slightly to offset the loss in credit revenue, or Tesla could actually lower prices to try to keep pricing affordable for the end consumer for as many people as possible. If I had to make a prediction, it would be that Tesla lowers prices a bit, as they're focused on affordability and they do still have some profit margin to give up. So rather than selling a Model 3 for say $40,000 and getting $7,500 of that sale from the government, perhaps they would sell it for $36,500 and then get nothing from the government. Moving to the public EV charging rollout, more recently Trump has said he supports EVs generally, but wants the market to drive their adoption rather than government mandates. But he has continued to criticize Biden's efforts to fund charging infrastructure, highlighting how billions have been wasted or stalled and very few charging stations have actually come online with those funds. So there's at least a chance some funding for public EV charging gets pulled or reduced. This won't really impact Tesla's supercharger rollout much, but this would of course be a negative for overall EV adoption. But in the long run, it would force these public charging companies to be more efficient, since they'd be responsible for a greater percentage of the cost of their site rollouts. And listen, I know Trump has spewed some nonsense about charging times, but again, hopefully Elon can help him see EVs and charging with different color lenses. One thing I think that's going overlooked is the likelihood that Trump quickly lowers the EPA emission standards that were set to go into effect around 2027. That would mean some legacy players may further delay their electrification plans, putting them even further behind. But it could also mean that the competition owes less in penalties thanks to missing those emission targets, which would ultimately be lower, and that could reduce Tesla's regulatory credit sales a bit. There's been plenty of talk about higher tariffs, specifically on Chinese and Mexican imports. I'm not sure how much higher they can go from the 100% they're at now for those coming from China, but Tesla has already reduced the number of imports to the US and Canada from China, so this would not have an outsized impact on Tesla. It would delay any significant Chinese entry of competitive EVs, but Trump has said he would be open to billion-dollar factory investments by Chinese companies if they wanted to produce vehicles in America with American workers. I'm not sure any Chinese companies would take us up on that, but those details can always be negotiated where maybe Chinese workers are on the line, but with American oversight. We've also talked about Trump mentioning higher tariffs on autos from Mexico into the US, as right now the rate is 2.5% for passenger vehicles thanks to the USMCA. It's unclear if or how Trump would eliminate the USMCA, but this will be something to watch when it comes to Giga Mexico. I still think that's now a few years away at the earliest, but when it comes to the USMCA, the next review for that policy is scheduled for July 1st, 2026, and if it's not extended, it would then expire on June 30th, 2036, with annual reviews along the way. Simon Moores from Benchmark believes there could be a lithium and critical mineral mining renaissance in America as EV battery jobs boom, and much of this positive economic benefit is set to happen in Republican states. Back in 2017, Trump signed Executive Order 13817, titled A Federal Strategy to Ensure Secure and Reliable Supplies of Critical Minerals. The main objectives were to 1. Secure critical mineral supplies, 2. Reduce dependence on foreign sources, and 3. To promote domestic production and processing. Just a few of the minerals that were included: cobalt, graphite, manganese, and of course lithium. And further proof of deregulation being likely under Trump, in his previous term he helped streamline the permitting process and reduced environmental regulations that could impede mining projects, while also issuing an executive order declaring a national emergency over the country's dependence on China for critical minerals. This was a clear stance that Trump was backing domestic mining and critical minerals activity. So it seems like the Tesla lithium refinery should still be set to receive incentives from the government, and Tesla may have access to a greater lithium supply from America in the long run. But perhaps the biggest opportunity for Tesla in my eyes is the potential for deregulation. If Elon can push for federal autonomous regulation, getting it off the current state-by-state basis, that would be a massive win for Tesla and autonomy. Personally, I think anybody saying this wouldn't be a big deal has no idea what it actually takes to go through the regulatory process state by state. I think one piece of evidence for that would be Tesla's delay when it comes to Tesla insurance. We don't know for sure what the real problem is, but we do know that that is regulated state by state. So the way I see it, I think federal autonomous legislation could save Tesla months, if not years, when it comes to regulatory approvals to roll out cybercabs and any autonomous vehicles all across the country. And it would be quite serendipitous if Elon could pull that off, given Tesla's internal expectations for the FSD version 13 series throughout the course of next year.
Why is it good for Tesla?
It's a dream scenario for any Tesla bull. I mean, I think this could ultimately add $40 to $50 per share to Tesla stock right off the bat. And we could now be talking about trillion and a half market cap for Tesla. This is really, for a Tesla bull, if you wake up to this, it's exactly what you want to see. And of course, Musk will clearly have a big voice in a Trump administration. Not just because of what could happen from a tax credit perspective. I think leveling playing field, you take out the Detroit automakers, and then that's really going to give them an advantage from a cost, scale, and scope perspective. But I think the big thing here, Trump could ultimately fast-track autonomous FSD. And our whole view, as we've talked about in the show, $1 trillion of valuation just on AI alone. This is going to unlock it. That's a key.
Tesla, having him in the White House. How? What sort of regulations are we watching?
And I think probably most important is this autonomous FSD. Because when you think about cybercab and everything we've talked about, 26, could that be 25? Now, all of a sudden, if Trump clears the path there, this changes the whole paradigm, I think, for
Are those regulatory
for
authorities that oversee full self-driving federal in nature, so that's where it is? It's not states that are involved, or how does that work?
Is it Department of Transportation?
It's a great question. I mean, there's some state, but a lot of it's federal. And then I think and the third part is a big overhang here. I think just broader has been regulatory.
You may have heard right there, it seemed like Ives wasn't too sure about the regulations being at the state level for autonomous vehicles, as he said it was largely federal, which is incorrect. As it stands now, there is no comprehensive federal framework regulating autonomous vehicles, and thus it's left to the states. 29 states and DC have enacted legislation related to autonomous vehicles, and 10 additional states have issued executive orders regarding autonomous vehicles. And what makes this so much harder for Tesla as it is now is that each state is different. Some allow testing while others allow full deployment. Some require a licensed operator, others don't. Some have special insurance requirements. Some laws apply differently based on the level of automation. So if all of that could effectively be wiped out and cleared out and then handled at the federal level with one clear policy, that would be one of the most bullish things that could happen for Tesla in my opinion, and would of course fast track Tesla's path to rolling out unsupervised autonomy faster than anything else. Now obviously Tesla still needs to solve the problem from a software perspective, but the compute is in place and growing every week, and the final features are set to come around Thanksgiving with banish and end of route improvements like parking and handling garages, etc. But overall, Elon having a stronger voice with this cabinet, especially relative to the adversarial relationship Elon had with the outgoing cabinet, is undoubtedly a positive thing for Tesla. But that does not mean there may not be some policy changes that could have a negative impact on Tesla in the short term. However, those could be offset by a cleaner regulatory environment and more positive commentary about Tesla and EVs from Trump and his team. I'm not naive, I'm not expecting Trump to become some huge EV fan, but I do think he will at least acknowledge their place in the market, he'll understand what Tesla is doing for US manufacturing jobs, and he'll look to advance the United States lead in the autonomous vehicle race. And as I've said before, I'd like to believe that over time, many that voted for Trump will consider a Tesla now that maybe wouldn't before, given that Elon and Tesla will be much more on their radar after everything Elon has done the past few months, and as Elon continues to make headlines in a possible advisory role with the Trump cabinet. And politics aside, I'd like to think we can all agree it's definitely time to make America healthy again. RFK has already said he plans to clear out entire departments of the FDA, which when you go down the rabbit hole, you learn would be a wonderful thing. I'm a huge proponent of clean eating, whole foods, sourced well, find what works for your body, have a varied, balanced diet, all of that. But when you're on the go and life gets crazy or you lose motivation, having AG1 in your arsenal is a quick, easy, and enjoyable way to get a baseline of daily nutrition. Lex Friedman, the man who endorses next to nothing, is still an advocate for AG1, the sponsor of this video. And there is a new offer this time around. The 75 vitamins and minerals in every serving are sourced with the highest standards. AG1 conducts its own third-party research and has iterated on the product dozens of times over the past decade, continually working to make it better. It's tested for hundreds of impurities, it's certified by NSF, and personally, I think it tastes really good. I did try a bunch before agreeing to work with AG1, and I'm telling you, many others taste like chalk. And right now, AG1 is offering a surprise bonus limited edition gift in addition to the welcome kit when you first subscribe. I'm guessing it won't last very long, so you can head to drinkag1.com/electrified to check it out while supplies last. The link is below, or you can use the QR code right on the screen. And just to run through a few quick news items, Ashok did congratulate Trump and Vance, and he said, "I suspect even the people who voted for them underestimate the amount of progress, energy, and efficiency this team will usher in. Can't wait." Joe Tetmeyer was speculating that there may be some upgrades at the Giga Texas switchyard for what might be a second Megapack site getting ready. We know the energy draw at Giga Texas is set to expand greatly with Cortex, the supercomputer, coming online, and Joe did say there are almost 200 transformers now on site. We got the weekly Tesla China number. It came in at 15,700. Comparing that to week 5 in quarter 3, that number was 12,500. So quarter over quarter, Tesla China is now down 8.64%. Then week 5 in quarter 4 last year was 14,000. Thus, Tesla gained a bit more ground year over year, and they currently sit at 20.05%. And some good news, which is why we don't look too far into any 1 week report, but Model 3 sales ticked back up significantly, coming in at 4,400, leaving 11,300 Model Ys for the week. Tesla has increased the wages of all employees at Giga Berlin by 4% 10% since the beginning of November. Their HR director said this is further welcome news for our workforce, especially at a time when many companies in the German auto industry are talking about job cuts and plant closures. Here we had a group of Tesla investors still coming after Elon for the 2018 funding secured tweet. This time around, they were basically attempting to get a mistrial. But in some good news for Elon, a US appeals court upheld the jury's verdict, clearing Tesla and Elon of any liability over those allegations. The investors that were suing Tesla and Elon were claiming that the instructions the jurors received on the law from the judge before they delivered their verdict in February of 2023 were flawed, warranting a new trial. But those efforts were shut down, and for now, Tesla and Elon are still in the clear for the funding secured tweet. On X, Chris from Dirty Tesla was celebrating that FSD 12.6.2 looked like it was bringing FSD profiles to city streets. But shortly after, Ashok clarified that speed profiles were extended to 50 miles per hour or higher speed limit roads. So I'm reading this to mean that speed profiles will not really be on all city streets, aka anywhere where the speed limit is under 50 miles per hour, the speed profiles will not be an option. I wanted to keep today's video on the shorter side. I know a lot of people are still processing the election, may have been up last night, so I wanted to be respectful of all of that. And today, Tesla stock closed at $288.53, up 14.75%. A massive outperformance relative to the NASDAQ that was up 2.95%. It was, of course, a higher volume day, trading about 83 million shares above the average the past 30 days. Tesla's market cap now sits at about $926 billion. And if Tesla can hit around $315 per share, that would take Tesla over a $1 trillion market cap. Don't forget, check out AG1 linked below for anyone interested. Hope you guys have a wonderful day. Please like the video. If you did, you can find me on X linked below. And a huge thank you to all of my Patreon supporters.